Hello, good morning, everyone. Just start typing your roll numbers and so in your what do you call in that chat. Now, in yesterday's class, what we have started the Ajax part, and we have seen how Ajax works, or introduction to Ajax, and then we have also seen how JavaScript is used and XML HTTP request object is used for what do you call communicating with the client and the server, between client and the server, and then how XML or the plain text what we talked about. We have seen an example of an plain text getting retrieved from the what do you call sent by the server and handled uh, in the HTML part. Now we have also seen the status codes there, as well as we talked about the state ready states. There are four ready states, that is 0 to 4, uninitialized, then open, send, receiving, and then finally what we had was what do you call the data which has already received, that is status 4, and then how to display the data. Now the next thing in the what do you call Ajax part, or your part of your syllabus is uh, just let me present this. The next thing part of your syllabus is the pre-Ajax communication techniques. Now here we will be talking about how was the communication done before Ajax was developed, or before we had this Ajax technology. Now here in this pre-Ajax communication things, let us look at the communication scenario. Let us look at the communication scenario. We have one-way communication and we have two-way communication. Now, two-way communication we have been talking along with, I mean, from the starting of this, what do you call, from the first unit itself. That is, when a request is sent, we receive a response back. But what about one-way communication? In one-way communication, actually it is not that response is not sent back. In both one-way communication and two-way communication, both the communication response is sent back. You have a request, we send a request and we receive the response back. But in one-way communication, the response is not important. So when you send a request, that's it. We may not bother about the what the response would be, or whether we receive a response or not. Then the Java, then how to send a request? There are several ways actually. JavaScript is one way of sending the request to the server. And the mostly one-way communication is to indicate that something happened with the request. That the purpose of one-way communication is. Though we will try to see the one-way communication in detail later in the coming slides. So remember that in one-way communication, both you have request and response, but in one-way communication, response is not important. And now two-way communication is a traditional approach actually. You have request and response. Both the response has to be handled by the client, or when it is returned has to be handled by the client. Now let us talk. So that was about the one way and common things about one way and two way communication. Now let us talk in detail about one way communication. How one way communication can happen. Now, very first thing is we can use a query string and then pass the pass the query through the link itself. Now this link can be a text link or an image. Now let us take an example of a text link. Assume that this is the http://abc.com or abc.xyz/. This is store rate.php, or you can also have a JSP page here. This is just an example. Till PHP end or till JSP, or if you're using JSP, this is considered as a link. Then anything up after question mark in a key value pair or name value pair is known as a query. Or you can have multiple name value pairs here, which is this whole thing will be known as a query string, or the parameters which you are sending or the query parameters you are sending through the link. Now this usually happens when we have already seen this happens when we use the get method in the for tag from tag, and the action would be the link. We provide the link and the entire data will be sent as a query through the URL. Now then once this string, this link or the query string is sent through the link, you are actually sending a request. Then what happens to the response? We said in one-way communication we are not bothered about the response. So what actually happens in a response? In the response, as usual, what happens is there will not be any content sent back. So the purpose of this code, or the purpose of this query, the link or query parameter through this is just to send a rating. That's it. We are not bothered about the response back. So what should be what should the client do when there is no response? When there is a blank response, there is a response, but there is no data received from the response. Now what actually happens is all the 200 series codes, HTTP return codes. We have talked about the 400 series HTML codes and messages yesterday. 400 series means resource not found. It's all about not found. 500 series are about server errors or internal server errors. The same way 200 series is about the 200 series is about the correct response received. So actually the status code 200 says that there is a response which is received. The request was correct and the response is received with some data. In the same way, there is status code 204 which says in the same way there is a status code 204 which says that response is request is fine, the server is sending back response, but the response is also correct. The thing is, response, there is no content inside response, so nothing will be displayed on the web browser. So this part is the query is sent, that is the query through the query parameter using the link, and then this just stores this rating on your server. That's all. Rating of 5 or rating of 4, rating of 3, 2, whatever is saved on the server. And obviously every request has a response. The response sent back is no content is sent back to the client. So this is one part of the one-way communication. Now next scenario is one-way communication through an image. Now you might be wondering how image, so how can we send the what do you call, how can we use an image to communicate one way? Image has a source tag. The image has a source tag. The query string, what you have seen in the what do you call in the last previous slide, same query string we are using, but we will not be using this query string as a link. We as a link or a text string, we will be storing using this query string. For example, http abc.xyz. What was that? Store rate dot and question mark query string, that is our query parameter, that is rating equal to 5. We will be using this inside the src. Image tag has got src as the attribute, source as the attribute. So inside the source, we will be using this as the what do you call the link, this link as the value to the source attribute. Now what actually happens is whenever a web browser encounters an image tag, it will try to look for the source or src attribute, and whatever src image is there in the src attribute, that image will be, I mean, the URL for that image is sent as a request, and that image is returned. Actual image is returned to the web browser, and web browser displays that image. So so the request sent is from the src or the source attribute, and the response received is nothing but the actual image. But what happens here is, when source is your link with query parameters or query string, the request, the web browsers interprets the value in the src attribute as a request and sent. But what do we receive? We will not receive any image. That is what we say about one way communication. So while trying to fetch the information, you just send a query parameter to the what do you call query parameter to the server using the src attribute. So this is how we will try to retrieve the image, or we will try to have the one-way communication using the image tag. But then what is the output sent? Again, the output sent is not the image actually of the source. The output sent or the response sent is, again, it is 204, saying that the request was proper, the response also proper, but there is no image or no content in this. Though no content, or we say there is no image sent back. So the browser will also not display image not found. It says response is correct. Image not found when suppose if SRC attribute has some image which is not present on the server, what we get is we get image not found error. Now that image not found is again over a 400 series error. But remember here what is happening is the server is not sending image not found. Server is sending a 204 what do you call status code itself, which is not an error but says that there is no content. So in this case there is no image. So no image means it's the error is not 400 error, 404 error. The only difference is there is no image, but it is sent as no content. So response is also correct. Now there are other ways also. For example, having a one-way communication. For example, we can use iframes. Now, obviously, these iframes are nothing but it was earlier. What we used to have is we used to have frames to divide a web page, but frames have been discouraged and not used nowadays. So iframes is much of the better technique of doing that. Now the concept is same for the iframes. Iframes SRC like your image, iframes SRC attribute itself will do the purpose, where we have the same query string that has to be sent, and then once we are fetching up the information, the request is from the source attribute, and response sent back is again a no 204 error, 204 status. Sorry, 204 is not an error, it's a status 204 status with no content. Now another way is, since this iframe also uses source as the attribute, image used source as the attribute. Another way is to send it using script tag. Now even the script tag contains a SRC attribute, source attribute. So always remember that whichever tag uses SRC attribute in HTML, using those tags we will be able to perform one-way communication. The query string will be same. Instead of image, or instead of iframe, the server will try to find the script code, and then it will return a response as 204, that is the request is correct but there is no content. It will not return any error, there is no content will be returned. So this is also one way. So one is the link or the text, the other way using the text to communicate one way. The other one is using the image tags SRC attribute. Third one was using the iframes SRC attribute. Fourth one is trying to use the scripts SRC attribute. Now we have another way. This is not using the script or something, but in case of cookies. So, using the cookies header information, we will be able to set the value for the cookie. Now, cookies we have already talked about in the HTTP servlet, as well as we talked about the cookies in JSP. The same way here, cookie. We can make use of the cookie value to handle the one-way communication. Now, remember that the cookies, as we can retrieve the information about cookies in servlets, as well as, in servlets we can set the cookies, as well as in JSP we can set the cookies, and then we can retrieve the cookies also from in servlets and JSP. In the same way, we can retrieve the cookies from JavaScript also. So remember that. So remember that the cookie values I mean, in the JavaScript, like we use document dot write the and the other attribute. The same way we will be able to use document dot cookie. Now here document is not JSP or something. It is for Java, JSP or servlet. This is what you call document. Here is an object of your what do you call your JavaScript. So inside JavaScript we can use document dot cookie, and then all the previous ones, previous four methods which we have seen for one-way communication, all these four methods was with respect to the what you call using a query string. But here cookies will not use query string. Cookies will use its own data. I mean, the cookies will use the values or the data which is set as part of the cookie. So as cookie also works in name value pair, so like rating equal to 5, what we have used is a query. Here in cookie, we can use the name of the, I mean, inside the cookie when it's created, we can use name as rating and then the value as 5. So cookie will not be using query strings. So these were the 5 ways of handling one-way communication in pre-Ajax communication techniques. Now let us talk about two-way communication. This is very easy. In two-way communication, I mean, link we know, images we know. So the only difference is we can send what you call through a link. We can send the request through a SRC source attribute. We can send a request. The only difference, remember that here in two-way communication, the response or the request once the request is sent, the response or the output or the response sent, or I mean by the server and received by the what you call client or a web browser, that will contain some content. It doesn't say 204 error. It will not give the status code as 204. It will be returned as 200 with some content. So server will not respond with 204 no content status. It will respond with 200 content status. Now, what happens is then SRC does not actually contain the correct image. It only contains a URL, a link which has some query string. So once the image is returned, I mean, when the response is returned back with the content, then obviously the what you call the query was not the query or the link was in the SRC attribute was not an image. So which image will be sent? The server sends a custom image. It creates an image by itself and sends the custom image. Now the next thing is obviously in all these the DOM objects can be used to handle the what do you call the content. Whatever is received by the web browser or whatever is sent by the response on the web server, that can be handled using the DOM objects or document object model. Yesterday we have seen in the example, that is the div tag. We can retrieve the div tag using the ID get element by ID, document dot get element by ID, and then assign the use the inner HTML and so and assign the values. So in all one-way communication, we were not talking or we have not talked anything about the DOM object. This was because the response what was sent was a correct response but had no content. When there was no content, there is nothing to display on the web browser. But here in two-way communication, what happens is there is a response which contains some content. So in this case, image technique, it contains a custom image which is sent by the server. So that custom image has to be handled and displayed to the user. So that is why here we are talking about the DOM object. Now the other way is, I mean, obviously cookies are also there. Now here in using cookies, we also have to use in conjunction with the cookies have to be used in conjunction with the images here. So images use a query string, server creates a cookie using that query string and sends a blank image. Now this image also has to be handled by the DOM, because what happens is cookie is saved inside the client's web browser, and then what do you call, the blank image has to be displayed somewhere, or what do you call, the custom image which is being sent by the server has to be displayed somewhere on the web page. So that is what is handled by the DOM objects. Now we can also use two-way communication script tag. Even script inside the script tag we have src through which we will be able to send. Uh, in return, what we get is, earlier in one-way communication we had no content, but here in return we will get a response back. Now, what is the response here? A script will be the response back. Now, the script which is returned actually does nothing. So, instead of what do you call, some data is returned once the script code is executed. So here it is not a blank image or a custom image that will be returned, but here what is returned is actually the what do we call, a script, a blank script or a script which contains some data. So this is how two-way communication happens with respect to the script tag. Now, again, as we used script tag, we also have iframes there, which also supports, I mean, sending the data, sending the request using the what do you call, the src attribute. And here also in the response, we receive some data that is can be a plain text or it can be an HTML as a response. Now remember, we are not talking about a response. We said the response, sent back, we said, as it will be what do you call, a blank image, or it will be a text, or it will be the data which is sent with the what do you call, cookie or whatever way. It will be a plain text or it can be an HTML. We are not talking about XML here, though Ajax means asynchronous JavaScript and XML, and we are not talking the data received. Obviously, in one-way communication, there is no data received. There is no content or no data received. But in two-way communication, when the data is received, we are not talking about XML data. Why? Because this is even though in Ajax we have XML, but since this is pre-Ajax techniques or pre-Ajax communication technique, so there is no such thing called as return of the XML data. So this was all about the what do you call, pre-Ajax communication techniques. Now just let me look at what do you call, the uh, the syllabus. Here, okay, there is something called as data formats in syllabus. Ajax HTTP request object, we have already heard XML HTTP request object. Then there is something known as data formats here. Those data formats are nothing but what do we call, the XML data, the JSON data, or the text data that can be what do you call, received in what do you call, in response to the Ajax queries. And then what is this? And then there is a last topic, that is the security concerns in Ajax. Now, what happens is when we are talking about the communication, Ajax actually is we are talking about asynchronous communication here, between the server and the what you call client. Now we face, since it is a part of the what you call some request and response, so it has to be handled for partial fulfillment of data or partial loading of the data of web pages. Now this will be more what you call prone towards the attacks. For example, the client side attacks or the server side attacks. And then in the security, as part of the security, I mean, uh, what we can do, or the security concerns what we have with respect to Ajax is that some attacker would be sitting in between the client and the server, and what happens is it will be trying to monitor or sniffing the transmission among clients, among the client and servers. So what happens is any request, whether it is one-way communication, whether it is two-way communication, or any asynchronous Java script request also, when which is made through the Ajax, the attacker can change the what you call change the content of the request, as well as the attacker can change the content of the response also. So what as theoretical part, what has to be done is the IP address, or the inputs are the taken from the user, has to be properly formatted. That is, it's much better to use the post method in the message bodies, or in the format, what do you call, in the form tag of the HTML, where we get method. Instead of specifying get, we need to specify post method there, such that the data is sent as an header, within the header part of the message to the body attached, not through as a query string through the get URL using the get request. So that is one thing we need to take care about. That is to communicate using the post method instead of get method. And then there are several other what you call ways of having uh, what do you call the communication part. That is, instead of sending the request through images, or sending the request through iframes, or sending the request through normal text links, it would be much better to use cookies to handle the what you call the request, to handle the communication between client and the server here. So this is one way. First one was to what you call use post method instead of get method. The second one was to use what you call cookies instead of query strings or URLs. And there are several attacks which it talks about, like what do you call the intruder can submit the JavaScript, that is what is Ajax what do you call script, to the server, and server may think that it is coming from the what do you call the legitimate user, or it is from the legitimate what do you call client, or the authentic client. So that has to also be protected. And there are several other theoretical parts here with respect to how what do you call uh, the security can be provided for Ajax communication. And when since we are heavily dependent upon, or not heavily dependent, actually Ajax is without JavaScript we cannot implement Ajax. So the basic uh, since we are using JavaScript, and JavaScript provides the programming functionality here. So the last thing what we can do, not the last thing what we can say is the what do you call the most highly efficient way that we can provide security for this asynchronous communications is to use JavaScript, and then within the JavaScript we can perform encryption and decryption. So, obviously, decryption is not performed here. When the request is sent, we can only perform encryption. So, JavaScript has the capability of, for programming. So, we can perform encryption. I'll add this. And at the server side, we will be able to handle or decrypt the data and handle the communication. Not only encryption sometimes will have an overhead, because it may take some time, or even a milliseconds will be much bothersome for the web communication. So JavaScript, using Java, we can also use encoding inside the JavaScript. Like encoding is nothing but changing some uh, the data into bits, or trying to encode it, or trying to change some characters. So encoding can also be performed, which will be much better than encryption. Use Since we are already using JavaScript for communication part. So this is how these are the security techniques, security concern. Actually, these are the security concerns with respect to JavaScript, Ajax actually, and using these three things. What do you call the get? The method as post instead of get, and then what do you call uh, the second one was instead of using the query string, trying to use the cookies there, as well as since we already have JavaScript, uh, trying to use the what you call encoding part or encryption part with JavaScript to protect the communication or asynchronous communication between the client and the server, from the attacker or from a middleman. So this was all about the JavaScript. What do you call the concept or technology? Or not JavaScript actually. This was all about the Ajax or asynchronous JavaScript communication technology. Now, as I said last time, the what do you call? In the last class, that there is a program for JavaScript Ajax using JavaScript, and handling the using the DOM object to handle that the HTML data or the content. And that program we still we just have seen on the slides, we have just seen the uh, what do you call a program, but we have not seen it seen it by running or actually executing that program. So obviously that we will try to do it at the very end of this what do you call the after completing the fifth unit. We will try to see that, because that is also a part of your a part of your lab program. So here we have theoretically seen everything about Ajax. As part of a program or as part of practical thing, we will see it at the end of the after completing the fifth unit. So this was all about what do you call the Ajax part. So now what we are left out is we are left out with Python in the uh, in our third unit, and Python will not take much time. And then I think in tomorrow or maybe day after tomorrow, I'll be able to complete. Now, tomorrow, obviously, I'll not be able to complete Python. But day after tomorrow, another two classes. This week, Thursday, we'll try to complete Python part. And then we will move on to the next week. We will move on to the what do you call, the fifth unit. Now remember that before we end this, any doubt? Any doubts for this today's session? Okay, now in tomorrow's session we will start with Python. Now just remember that in Python, I mean Python is very vast, very vast. There are several, what do you call, libraries. There are several things that can be done in Python. So when I say we will start Python and in 2 days we will complete Python, it doesn't mean that we are going to complete the entire Python. Python is very vast. What we have Python as part of your syllabus, or as part what we will be learning here about Python or using Python, is with only concern or only with respect to the web programming part. So Python, what we will be seeing here is we will see the basics of Python. We will see what objects are there. We will see different data, storages or structures that Python supports. And with that, obviously the, what do you call, if condition and for loops and all we will see. And with that, we will focus only on the web programming part, that is how to create web pages or how to retrieve data from the user and then, what do you call, handle that data. So Python, it's not all of Python that we are going to learn here. And it's not that everything in Python we will be learning here. We will only focus on Python which is used for web development or web programming. Not even web scraping, because nowadays you might be hearing about a lot about, what do you call, web scraping and all on internet. Several articles will be written and so and so things. So we will not even focus on web scraping, because web scraping is nothing but whatever content you have on the internet or the web page, you try to extract that content. Here we are bothered, so we will not be doing web scraping. Here we are bothered about how to create web content using Python. So we will try to look at the Python only with the view of writing web pages or handling web pages. Your HTML form will be same. There will not be any change. Instead of sending the data to servlet or JSP, we will be sending data to a PHP. Now, obviously, when we look at the PHP programs and all, web programs, I'll tell you which server to use, how to install that server, and then the other things. So this is what we have for today's class. Are there any questions that has to be clarified? Anybody? A- Anyone with any questions that needs to be clarified? So shall we end this today's session? So let us end today's session. You can join the other class, and tomorrow we will start with the Python part. There is some question here. Uh, Web frameworks like Danjo and Flask. Uh, What actually is the question? Okay, will we use them? No, we will not be using Danjo and Flask for web development. We will not be using that. That is not, I mean, Danjo and Flask is used for web development. They are the I mean, they are very, what do you call, flexible and very, enterprise frameworks through which will be able to create very nice websites and do other, what do you call, things there, provide dynamic functionality there. But as part of your syllabus, we don't have Django and Flask. So we will not be using Django and Flask in this, what do you call, web programming. Our purpose to learn Python is to provide functionality of server programs. So we will not be using Django and Flask. We will not be using these libraries. Anything else? Yeah, what is 28th? What is the question, sir? Is recording options will be uploaded by? I am putting up in the what do you call, the recordings. I think I am putting up. Yesterday I sent it through, what do you call, on your chat itself. I'll just upload it. Not chat. Sorry. What do you call? What is that? Some group you have, no? A WhatsApp group. Yesterday's also I have uploaded on WhatsApp group, as well as just now slides I have uploaded. Yesterday's slides also I have uploaded. So I will be uploading this on the WhatsApp group, that 2021 pass out group WhatsApp. Is it fine?